But you know what? It's okay. You don't have to feel bad about it. You can feel free from it. Can you imagine having thought something your entire life, then being told it's wrong, that you are a bad person because of it, and then going, change, without any remedy, without anything else? Well, guess what, guys? That's what we're here for. That is part of our commission. Christians, that is why we have been placed on this planet for this time. It is so that we can go to the people that are lost, broken, and are shamed and go, hey, that shame isn't yours. So yeah, I'm back out here recording again. I'm just going to keep on doing it because that's what I felt like I'm supposed to do. The fascinating part over the last few months has been internally as I've had so many things that I've wanted to share and that I have shared. I found it very difficult to get my words down to just a few things. There's been a lot of confusion. And tonight I have a very specific thing to talk about. I don't exactly know how to do this. And this is a little different because it is a little bit more like preaching, I guess. Especially because I'm preaching to a camera. But I don't know who this is for, but it's for somebody. And at the very least, it's for me, so maybe it's just important that I get it out for myself. Today I was thinking about the same thing I think of most mornings on my ride into work. Racism, the church, the country, my family. And how all this is going to shake out. Because I'm going to level with you guys. If you think I'm going to speak any differently to Democrats, assuming that there is a change in political regime, if you think I'm going to speak any differently to them than I am about things now with Republicans, I think you don't know me that well. Maybe I hold people to an unrealistic standard. I'm having to kind of come to terms with that. I expect a lot from my public servants, from our system of government, because I've been raised to believe that it was worth expecting a lot out of. I put my name on the line for this country. I put a lot of emotional equity into this country, just like all of us have. And so to be told now that because I expect integrity out of my neighbors, especially those neighbors who decide to represent me, that I'm wrong, or that I'm something as simple as a Democrat, is not only disheartening, it's concerning, because I think sometimes we've gotten so used to black and white arguments, especially when it comes to our nation, because of politics and things like that, that we stop actually addressing the issues that are going on inside of each of us. It becomes about politics instead of being about what's going on with you, what's going on with me. If I share something that's going on the inside of me, or something that I'm feeling, or I say go to a protest, the automatic assumption is, well, Chris has gotten really liberal. That's concerning, because if our politics is able to erode our ability to see each other for who we are, or to be individuals, then there's a problem there. Because here's the reality, guys, is we are individuals. Yeah, you might be comfortable identifying yourself with either a blue or a red. If that's your thing, great. But I gotta caution you, that's not gonna last very long. It's just, I don't know of anything that's simple. Do you? Do you know of anything that is as simple as I am either this or that, and I either have to accept everything that it means to be on one side, or I have to accept everything that it means to be on the other side? I don't know of anything like that. There's one. And that's my faith. So, I know there are many who believe that faith is tied to one side or the other. Many people believe that red is the color of Christianity. I don't know how to say this more unequivocally. If you expect a large presence of people who had your political affiliation, when you get to heaven, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Because heaven isn't going to look like us. It's going to look like our Father, our Creator, our God. And I do believe that. That's such an odd thing for me to talk about because most of you know me, you don't hear me talk about faith. You don't hear me talking about Jesus, unless unless you're another Christian. I don't know exactly the reason for that. I don't want to impose. I don't want to overstep. But you know what? Some things aren't an overstep if it is literally that. If I believe this as much as I do, then I almost feel like I'm robbing you not to be very honest and upfront. And any of you who know me closely know that I really do honor and treasure being able to be as upfront with you as possible. And I hope you can believe that about me. You know, I've had some interesting conversations over the last couple months with people where, I'm well aware that my reputation has been put on the line. I have stood on grounds that I'm well aware I'm going to have to answer for someday. And I take it that seriously now. Because it deserves that level of seriousness. Not because of my reputation. Because if I believe that I'm a son of God, which I do, then I'm carrying His name. And that is way more important than anything I might think is right or wrong. All that comes to a point where I realize how little any of this is actually about me. And sometimes there are just things you got to talk about because, well, it's time. So I've been writing tons of things and I've been trying to figure out how to get them into some kind of format that will make sense or that anybody would care to hear about. Well, here I am. I am not a short-winded person. I say a lot of words. I will try to edit that down for you. Today I started thinking about the difference between racism and a racist. And it was such an odd thought because, I've seen the word racist thrown around a ton. And it's always, almost every time I've seen it, it struck me very, very strongly. I've used it very strongly because that ability to put a label on somebody, an actual term to them, that is not something to take lightly. So as I was thinking about our country and I was thinking about everything that's going on right now and this confusing mix of politics that has very little to do with the arguments of equality and social and racial justice. I know we want to make them that because it's simple. We want a black and white argument, literally, but it isn't that simple. Believe it or not, you could get rid of the political parties today and guess what would still exist? No? Prejudice. What ends up happening is we bundle our prejudice based on things like race with prejudices about our political affiliations. And the whole time what we're not actually doing is seeing that there are things about each and every one of us that needs to change. And I think there's a very specific reason for that. I think we have an issue with shame. Back in February, I was praying and started hearing about the idea that, we need to become more comfortable acknowledging our failure, our sin. Not saying, hey, yeah, no, it's cool, I sin, oh well, that's just me. But acknowledging it so that we can start to move away from it. I actually shared this with a couple people, and it was so strong. It just hasn't gone away, but it's always been in the back. I didn't really know what to do with it. But then today I was thinking about shame. And I'm thinking about our country and how desperately we work to avoid shame or feeling ashamed. How we will fight tooth and nail to work our way around any sort of shortcoming or failure. Not only that, how quickly we work to destroy anybody who we feel deserves shame. It is one of our strongest weapons. And I think the reason why is because, without you get shame because you have pride. When your pride is embarrassed, you get ashamed. It had me thinking about the difference between a racist and racism. So I went and looked up the definitions, and Merriam-Webster defines racism as a belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capabilities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of one particular race. That's racism. Okay? It is a belief. It didn't say it's all your beliefs. It's a part of it. And then I thought about how quickly people are throwing around the term racist. This person is a racist. This politician is a racist. If you have this view inside of you somewhere, then you're a racist. Well, hold on. Let's look up Merriam-Webster's definition of a racist. A person who shows or feels discrimination of prejudice against people of other races, or who believes that a particular race is superior to another. So racism is a belief. A racist takes those beliefs and turns them into action or words. In our system where we are so quick to shame people and use that as a reason to make them feel inferior, we end up, I think, easily applying the label of racist. So for me, it became a question of, if I have a view that is prejudiced, does that make me a racist? Can you separate the two? I'm sure there's a very strong argument why you can't. But boy, I don't know anybody who is guiltless here. Not one person. It just is. Partly because we are so hesitant to actually acknowledge it and work through it. Some of us have. Some people really are actively working to acknowledge that they have issues that they need to work on. And then when they are addressed about something that they didn't realize that they espoused, they instantly work to turn from that behavior. They're like Nineveh. Jonah shows up, tells them that they're messed up, and they immediately turn. I hope I can be more like that in my life. I'm trying. Because it's what people deserve. It's what you deserve. Why I think we need to be careful with using the term racist for just anyone, or really, maybe labels in general. Maybe calling people Karens is not a healthy thing. Calling people Kens is not necessarily a healthy habit, guys. Okay? We need to be very cautious about the way we use labels to shame somebody. I can tell you that unequivocally as somebody who is biracial. I know what it's like to have a term used to shame me. It sucks. See, I don't think any of us want to admit it, but we all have prejudices in our thinking. We have prejudices about people of different colors. We have prejudices about people from different races. Usually they show up in stereotypes. We just have that's just the way they are. This person believes that black people are just more likely to commit crimes. They don't realize what they're saying at first is black people are inherently less ethical or moral. That's what those two statements are. They're the same thing in different packaging. Well, they just, they need to learn how to just act kind of like whoever they need to learn how to behave. As if another human being isn't aware that there are ways to behave or not behave. I think there's a cold reality that we need to look at where each of us carries around prejudices. We carry around prejudices against people because of their race. I don't believe really anyone who says differently, because if we push you far enough, it'll come out. But I do believe that we're too ashamed to really admit that it is there. It's got me wondering, what are we hiding? Who do we think we're fooling? And then second, what do we have to hide? The last few months seems like they have pushed a lot of people to the point where they are making actions they've never made before. They've taken actions that maybe in the past wouldn't have had them labeled one way or the other. They're saying the same thing they always have. Something's changed. So anyway, earlier today, I had just a thought that I thought I'd share, and it was, starting with myself, I don't know a single guiltless person when it comes to prejudice. To be fair, stereotypes start somewhere, right? I think most of us want to think well of other people, but we are taught that there is a lot of evidence that has led to these perceptions. What we don't acknowledge is that the origin of those perceptions were by people whose only goal wasn't to instill beliefs that one race is superior to another. The history of this ideology is a repeatedly documented subject. It is racism created by racists who were wise enough to know they didn't need everyone to believe the entirety of what they taught. They just needed to prey on the ego and vanity of the average person, infecting them with mild rashes of fear and indifference, and that would be enough to maintain the walls of prejudice they work so hard to construct. See, here's the thing, guys. If we don't learn to address our prejudices, we'll never start to see that they aren't just by happenstance. There is a reason that we believe things that make us think less of somebody else. And it was from somebody who had an intention at one point or another. When something is spread with a purpose to play on our emotions and they tie it to things that we identify as parts of us, it becomes very easy to just go, well, that group is just more violent. They smell. That's a major one, especially if you go to other parts of the world. There are so many things that I have thought over and over again. There are so many just typical. That's just typical of those people. Those people. And then there's the harmless version. Well, all I know is that I would never behave like that. So this is where we end up at times like this, where racism suddenly comes to the surface, it looks us directly in the eye, and then we have to start to look inward a little bit, and again, that's when the shame kicks in. And we do not do shame. We reject it. Because we are very comfortable putting people into either the worst thing or whatever we perceive the best thing is, we are then put in a really uncomfortable position where we have one of two choices. Something happens, say an interaction with a police officer, and somebody gets mistreated. Okay, no question, this person probably shouldn't have died from a simple arrest. That's pretty straightforward, and most of us have agreed with that. But then somebody says, well, that happened because of the way that we all think, the way you think, the way I think. But then what we hear from that is, Well, you're saying that happened because of me. I didn't do that. I don't live there. That isn't me. And then all of a sudden we go into self-preservation mode because we've been put in a place where we either have to acknowledge that we have prejudices, which means that we have racism in us. We have views that espouse racism. And with our society, the problem with admitting that you have racism in you is that you automatically now have to say, I'm a racist. So you're put at a crossroads. Look at yourself in the mirror, see that you have prejudices, and move away from them. Otherwise, you end up being deemed a racist. It's as simple as that. Right? Well, okay. So let's say I find out one day for the first time ever that there might be something that I'm doing wrong. Now again, in a culture that hates shame, one day I find out that I have been operating under views that are inappropriate, wrong, prejudiced, discriminatory. Well, that's a lot to take in, especially if it's what I thought my entire life. Listen, black neighborhoods just are more dangerous. That's a fact. Well, why is it more dangerous? Well, I don't know. I just know that. Okay, so then very quickly we find out you don't know much. Well, so now what's going to end up happening is I'm not going to be put in a place where I'm ready to just admit, oh wow, I had racism in me now. I'm going to go defend myself. That's what's going to happen next. Because I don't want to feel shame. Because here's the very interesting part, is while many of us are willing to point out each other's flaws, we give no remedy whatsoever. We are not readily there to not just forgive, but to help somebody come to a place of wholeness. We say you need to change, or you are going to be cast into the most shameful thing. And that, in this country, I believe being called a racist might very well be it, aside from being called the N-word. I think they're equally hated. It's like a line you can't get back from. I don't think that's supposed to be the case. Somebody can be addressed about having a view, but you know what they might very well need? And this is a difficult thing, is they might... Actually, it brings up a question. Does somebody deserve time to change their way of thinking? Well, that's interesting because one of the constant arguments you hear very early on, especially with protest, is, well, you're not going to change anybody's mind. People are going to believe what they're going to believe. And you say, okay, well, let's go change laws then. Let's change legal protections. And then they go, whoa, 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 whoa. Then the argument starts. Because now it turns out that it wasn't just that they had a misconception that they need to think about, it's that they felt safe in their belief. And when people feel safe in a belief, they're going to feel a lot different about it moving. That's how these problems get worse and worse. But again, guys, what is complicating the problem more and more is that we are more interested in pointing out the places where others have failed and made themselves, in our minds, inferior. I genuinely do believe that the majority of people are not racist. Not only that, I believe the majority of people would stand up if they felt like somebody they knew or cared about was being threatened or harmed by a racist. If somebody was burning a cross on my parents' front yard, I know that a lot of the people who are saying the things that they have been saying online would be some of the first people there to step up and protect them. I have no doubt of that. No doubt of that. Just because we stopped having to deal with legally sanctioned, that form of legally sanctioned racism, it's become much easier for people to go, well, nobody's burning the crosses anymore, so we're good, right? We're good? No crosses? That's Well, there is more to it than that. See, many people are just finding out that there might be something inside of them that they would never want there. This last few months has been the first interaction many of people have had with confronting that they have biases and prejudices. Believe it or not, they've been able to deny them up till now. So as people are just learning to confront some of these stereotypes and biases in their own hearts, some of the first people to speak the loudest are those who have perhaps already dealt with this in them. They've dealt with racism in their own minds, and they've addressed that it exists and that it's there, and they, for one reason or another, are extremely eager to point it out in other people. They're the first people to call others racist. And you know what? I don't know. Maybe they are right. Maybe they can spot them easier than I can. And maybe it's out of the best intention of their heart. But what it ends up doing is because everything they're saying ends up only bringing shame, and it doesn't bring any kind of life with it. People end up getting pushed farther into what they already believe because they know they're not racists. They know they would, if they saw blatant racism, they would step up. If they saw somebody calling a dark person the N-word, they probably would step in. Probably. I know most people would do it for me. You know, for me as somebody of color, it feels very simple. I think I put it as this. Either I unconsciously harbor racism and need to change, or I choose to be a person who shows or feels discrimination or prejudice against people of other races. A racist. But then the things that start to come out are because people are being pushed into the defensive, they put into a place where they have to either decide that all their views are racist, or that they have some prejudices that they need to address. People get pushed in a place where they are either have issues that need to be addressed, or they are completely a racist. Well, that's not even a choice, and most people might not fully understand that their views have problems in them. And what they really don't want to do is admit it if there are problems with them. And the thing they certainly don't want to do is admit it if they actually do have problems they need to address. It's not what Americans do. It's not what Americans have done. It's not what people have done. We're really good at considering ourselves winners without ever considering it's that in our failures that we have a lot to learn. And that in our failures, we actually can learn to be the people we aspire to be. Part of the reason I haven't wanted to share anything this openly up to the last few months is because I was afraid of being embarrassed. It's as simple as that, right? I'll contend that one of the few things more feared than being called a racist in America is feeling shame of public disapproval. So what do we do then? How do you change a society that is petrified of being embarrassed, of admitting that they have problems, faults, wrongs? Yeah, some can argue it's a pride problem. I'm going to argue that it's a shame problem. We don't want to look foolish or bad. We don't want to fail. Why do you think Make America Great Again is so infectious? People want to feel great. They don't want to feel like they need to get better. It's much more comfortable than to just hold on to the views that we've had, find others that feel the same way as I do. They feel attacked. We can just buddy up, and now there's safety in numbers. when the whole time is, hey guys, from somebody on the other side of the whole racial argument, yeah, there are just as many blue and red racists. Sure, more black people vote Democrat. Democrats have marketed very, very well to black people. Republicans seem to have marketed exactly the opposite way. That's an argument for political scientists. I think it's pointless. In the meantime, while people are trying to figure out how to handle prejudice in their life, the people who are being hurt the most are the people who inequality affects the greatest. Now, I realize there's more to this than as simple as saying, well, if people get comfortable being okay with their shame, then there might be a chance for us to start to repair some of the damage that has been done as we protected ourselves from embarrassment. Maybe. What I do know is that if we don't get a hold of our desire to shame other people, this is not only going to get worse, but the defense mechanisms that are coming up in some people are getting really violent. And that's scary. How far have we gone where people are getting very comfortable pulling out weapons when nobody is actually physically threatening them? The emotional threat of being shamed is so great that people are willing to take out guns and stand their ground. It's crazy. But it's serious. And it's something that people who understand what it is to have been forgiven, people who have received grace in their life, need to be the first to show up and show grace. Not just show grace to people that they agree with, not just show grace to people who have been called out, but to teach how to show grace to people who are different than you. And this is where all of this comes back to Christians. See, guys, we are the ones who should understand that shame is nothing to be ashamed of. Without Jesus, it is. Without Jesus, shame is hopelessness, it's weaponized hopelessness. It's awful. But we have Jesus, the one who took our shame. Guys, the reason I say that we Christians are the ones who have to be the ones responding not just to, don't call people racist. That's not the point. Our response is to look at ourselves and say, wow, I have things I need to work on. We should be okay with that because we have a Jesus who died so that we can work and take the time to become more like him. We didn't have to wait and pay our penalty. He took that penalty for us because he understood that our shame was too great for us to overcome. But for some reason, guys, it seems like we're really comfortable as Christians fighting the same argument and espousing the same issue that seems to be annihilating so many people on our planet, so many people in our country. We hear somebody say, this view is prejudice, and we go, well, I kind of agree with that view, and I know I'm not prejudiced, I'm a Christian. Well, with all due respect, if you're being called, if something you believe is being said to have a problem with it, then rather than responding and trying to defend yourself, maybe it's time to go get on your face. You know what? The worst thing that would happen is that God would say, you're okay. You know how many times in the last couple months I've had to go, God, I'm so afraid I'm going to say something that is going to harm somebody else, because I have said things that have harmed other people, especially early on. My God, I can't do that. I can't be that person. And so I guess I'm saying some of this to admonish Christians not just to resist the desire to take stances and be more comfortable with the idea that each of us has many things that we need to not just work on, but correct. See, if we weren't so worried about being shamed, if we didn't have this fear of being imperfect, even though we know we are, if we weren't afraid of being seen as imperfect, then this wouldn't be an issue. Somebody says, hey, you know what? You said this, or you did this. And that was problematic. It was prejudice. The reaction wouldn't be to go, oh my gosh, how can I defend myself? Because I've always thought that, and that can't possibly be wrong. It would be, oh my gosh, first of all, you know that just like you, I'm a human. And just like you, I don't want those things in me. So let me first, I'm sorry for having those views. I'm sorry for treating you that way. Now let me go and work on getting that, making sure that isn't a part of my life. See, if us as Christians have that in us, we can then go to people who aren't Christians and go, hey, that's a problem in you, but you know what? It's okay. You don't have to feel bad about it. You can feel free from it. Can you imagine having thought something your entire life, then being told it's wrong, that you are a bad person because of it, and then going, change, without any remedy, without anything else? Well, guess what, guys? That's what we're here for. That is part of our commission. Christians, that is why we have been placed on this planet for this time. It is so that we can go to the people that are lost, broken, and are shamed, and go, hey, that shame isn't yours. That's Jesus. He took that. Not only that, he has something new for you to wear. It's grace. His beautiful, perfect grace. If we do not learn to humble ourselves a little bit and start to find some freedom in the idea that, you know what, not only am I not perfect, is that that's not the goal. If we don't start to embrace that as Christians, more people around us are going to continue to die in hopelessness, ashamed, embarrassed. I don't want that for anybody. And I don't want it any more than I'd want it for myself. See, in all this, yes, I want justice and equality for men, especially in a country that claims that that's what's supposed to be here. But you know what I want more? I want to be a person who brings life and identity and wholeness to people who are damaged, to people who are just like me. People who think one way have harmed people by the way that they think and need to improve. And need to probably repent a little bit. See, if we can't handle our shame, then we definitely can't handle repentance. Again, if we can't handle accepting our shame, we will never be able to accept that we need to repent. Not only that, is if we can't do it, how are we supposed to convince people who don't believe that they need a Savior? How are we supposed to convince people that are lost that they need to repent? See, we're not just here to say the message, guys. We're here to do the work. Okay? We are here so that we can be the ones that people see and go, wow, look, I don't know what's going on in them, but I need to have whatever that is. I need to not be so wrapped up in the things that are just driving me crazy with depression and anxiety. With all the self-hatred, the shame, the embarrassment. I don't know what has gotten Chris to that place. But that's where I need to go. That's all. I don't know what it is. I need it. The problem, though, is again, I don't know if that happens. At least not in this day and age. I don't know that it happens. What I do know is that the people who need wholeness the most, whether white, black, any other color, they're going alone. With their pride to keep them warm, and their shame to drag them down. So, yeah, guys, what am I doing here? I don't know. I don't have anything great for you. But what I am going to start doing is probably more of this. And I'm excited about it. I'm going to do more of this, not because I'm trying to be your pastor, but because I think all of us have things to share that give life, that are encouraging, that can lift each other up. And a lot of us might have been too ashamed to do it. I'm not going to sit here and try to defend political stances with you. That is, a lot of that's between you and God, as just like it is for me. I will certainly defend people's rights, because that's part of doing justly. I don't have a lot to offer, but what I do have is a heart that is completely sure that without Jesus, I'm incredibly useless. I'm a mess of clouded thoughts and nothing else. With Jesus, I have peace. I have confidence, not in anything about me, but that I belong, that I am not going to be put to shame. Sometimes it feels very un-American, but it never feels bad, and that's what I want for you. Because maybe once you have that, maybe you can come back around and be the American that each of us has aspired to be for so long. But guys, that's gonna go away anyway. Go on the ground. Go to heaven. This doesn't last that long. This is temporary. What's going on in here, whether you want to believe it or not, is going to matter long term. and there is hope. One thing I can offer is prayer. Early on in this, I mentioned that we were praying with our kids every night for different cities around the United States, and we have continued to do that, and it's really been special, especially when we were able to turn to the kids and go, hey, you know what happened in that city tonight or today? They changed the laws. The protests stopped being violent, or, well, they've gotten better. We've joined in to something because we realized that, well, protests might have very little effect. The effective fervent prayers of a righteous man avail much. And so we are well aware that there is something very real about the prayers we say. And we want that for you. We want to bring the gift that we have, our prayers, for you, not just to say nice things, but because we believe. We don't just believe that they're nice things to say. We don't even believe that they are good things to say. We believe that they are the most powerful thing that we can say for you. So Jesus, I ask that your kingdom would come. Your will would be done, here on earth as it is in heaven. Jesus, I thank you for how absolutely perfectly wonderful you are. For your endless amount of pride in us. For the amount that you've despised the idea that we would ever be shamed by our sin or by our failures. So much so that you said, you know what? I'm going to take all those on my body. And I'm going to lay my life down willingly so that you don't have to feel that way anymore. God, you are so wonderfully, wonderfully good to us. You're so full of grace and mercy for people who, while we can look at ourselves and see all the reasons we don't deserve it, you say without a doubt that we deserve exactly what you're giving us. You give us the portion that you've trimmed for us. So Lord, I just ask that you would soften our hearts to receive that portion, that we would receive your Son, that we would stop allowing our shame and our pride in that shame that we build up and all our defenses, that we be able to lay those down and accept that you are the most wonderful thing that has ever happened to us. And that every day that we've imagined that you weren't real is incredibly sad, but every day from here out that we see just how real you are is going to be spectacular. Now for the homes of people who are afraid. I pray that your kingdom would come and your will would be done in their home and in their minds as it is in heaven. I pray for the people who are angry, that you would bind their broken hearts. You would heal the wounds in their souls. Father, for people who have never experienced a good father, an excellent father, I pray you teach them to trust that there could be a father who loves them unconditionally, who is for them unconditionally, and who will always be there unconditionally. For every person who has been for every person who is lost in hopelessness, Jesus, I pray that you would just remind them that if they see only hopelessness, is that it's just because they're not looking in the right direction. And that your hope, it is not just immeasurable, but it is overflowing. Your grace is overflowing. I pray you would stir the hearts of my friends, my family, my neighbors, near and far, for our nation, for our representation in government, for this world. Jesus, you are I am so thankful that you would be here in my home tonight. And I pray that others would get to experience that exact same thing. That they would know as they lay their head down that they are not alone. Literally not alone. That you have been waiting anxiously for today. And you cannot wait for the time where my friend turns their eyes on Jesus and looks full in your wonderful face and realizes that they are okay, that they are imperfect, but perfectly accepted and loved. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have for now. I think that's plenty. If you have any needs, prayer requests, please let me know. Kelly and I will be praying for you. We're happy to do that. We have plenty of other wonderful people who will also pray for you. Let us know how we can support you best right now. How can we help? I won't pretend that this is not an incredibly difficult time, emotionally, personally, for me. But what I will always be willing to do is that if you genuinely are seeking to grow, and not just to feel better about the person you are, but are looking to head in the same direction that I'm headed, which is closer to Jesus, let's buddy up. Okay? I want you to understand that is I'm not standing here with Jesus going, hey, you need to come up here with us. I'm saying, hey, you see, we're going that way. Come with me if you want to go to freedom. That's what's going on in this heart. Don't want you to forget that. This is not Chris coming to you and saying, hey, you need to be better like me. It's me saying, hey, you look a lot like me. I know where we can go and be free. And I'd really like you to go with me. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go.